Hi, welcome to my painting demo. My name is Philippe Miguel. I'm an artist living in southeastern Mass. I teach fine arts classes at Barnstable High School. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to sort of walk you through the process, my process of building a painting. And this painting is fairly abstract, but what I'd like to do today, and hopefully with this video, is demonstrate some of the ways that I make decisions based on shape, color, line, and those kinds of elements that we see in art. Alright, so what we're looking at right now is me painting over one of my older works that's been in storage in my studio. I'm using a primer from a local hardware store, and I'm just trying to cover the entire surface with this sort of white paint, but I'm leaving little tiny sections of color showing through. I'm going to use those bits and pieces of the old painting in what I'm about to create in the new painting. So now what you're looking at is me applying the paint with different brush strokes. I'm using vertical, horizontals, and angles. I'm deliberately using thicker paint and thinner paint in certain areas because I want to create these transparencies where you can see some of the color showing through. I'm starting to build up some of the paint surface because I'm interested in creating some early textures in the painting, which eventually will help me to establish a sense of space within the surface of the painting. Okay, so speeding things up, I'm drawing into the paint surface. I'm working with this motif of the like from Facebook and from Instagram. I use a variety of paints: acrylics, house paint, spray paint, as well as markers and other media for my paintings. So some of the drips that you see are intentional. I want that expressive look in my painting. And you also can see that I added these wooden strips at the bottom and at the top corners in order for the canvas to stay still while I add three-dimensional elements. Okay, so now I'm starting to paint some of the shapes in. The red usually takes quite a few layers to get it to that brightness that I'm looking for. And I also added this kind of yarn, this sort of peachy yarn, to the top of the canvas. And you'll see that I'll use that yarn in a strategic way for my composition as the painting progresses. What I'm doing now is I'm thinking about how color will move your eyes around the canvas. In this stage of the painting, the color isn't quite as important as we get going on and as the painting starts to develop. What I'm doing mostly is drawing with paint. I have some color in mind, and I'm thinking about value. I'm thinking about light and dark, but I haven't really done a lot of work with mixing colors. Now, I know that the forms that I'm working with, the subject matter, this like, has a certain color that I want to capture. I want to capture that red that we see on social media, and I want to try to get some of the blues that we see when we're looking at Facebook and the Facebook like. So I want to start there. I like to play music in the studio, and sometimes I will put together a playlist that's specific to the kind of work that I'm making. Okay, so I have the bucket of primer paint and a big brush. And what I'm doing now is painting out larger areas, basically editing out some of the work that I've done before, and leaving some of the color showing through. The original painting that I started with was red, green, and black, and now all of those colors are basically gone. I go through a lot of edits in a painting like this. Just as easily as I'm wiping out large areas with white paint, I'm going to come back and rework some darks. I guess my composition would be considered all over. It's a term that was used for paintings that didn't quite have one focal point. Artists like Cy Twombly were known for that, or maybe even abstract expressionists like, de Kooning or Pollock. Historically, abstract expressionism has a reputation of being macho, and it was dominated mostly by men and underrepresented by women and minorities. So my paintings have the same types of marks and brush strokes that you might recognize from abstract painting of the past, or expressionistic painting, or pop art painting. All that language is built up from seeing a lot of artwork, to get out there and sort of see what other artists are doing, and through that you start to become more comfortable with the language of mark making. And what I'd like to do with that knowledge is to be sensitive to the times that we're living in today. And hopefully I'm doing that minus all the machismo. See that I'm painting the sides of the canvas. And the reason I'm doing that is because I treat the canvas like an art object rather than, say, a picture that needs to be framed. The painting will sit without a frame. It'll be framed by the bits and pieces of yarn that you see at the top and or around the sides, as well as I'll carry the same shapes and colors around and wrap the canvas. Starting to add some midtones and introducing some new colors. I used a stencil and added some @ symbols to the painting to bring back some of the blues. Lucky you, I edited out the butt crack while I reached down to the bottom parts of the canvas. It's the part of the video where I make a shout out to the Pixies and their song Wave of Mutilation. I use the yarn for a few reasons. One, as a color in my painting. Second, as a line in my painting. And third, as a texture. I'm starting to glue bits and pieces of the yarn element into my work. Sometimes you're painting when you're not painting. I think that we overlook how much time artists spend looking before they make a decision. And that's what you're seeing me do here. I'm trying to decide what my next move is. I think the next move is not always obvious. I think with time, things start to get clearer, and you just sort of trust your instincts. When you reach this point, sometimes the best thing to do is to just leave it alone and come back the next day. The next day, I come back to the painting with fresh eyes, and I'm a little more objective. So now I'm starting to add some neutral colors. These muted colors are important to the painting because not everything needs to be saturated. Not everything is going to demand your attention. And it's important that these colors act as a way to balance the painting. Painting can be about the purity of painting, meaning that it can be just about paint itself and about how you apply the paint and the action of that. It can be about just the color or just the shapes. And what I'm doing is different than that because I've introduced some representation, and I'm using the symbols of the likes in order to convey an emotion. Okay, so now I'm in the final stages of the painting, and what I'm doing is I'm cutting up styrofoam likes. I'm gluing them to the surface, as well as adding some elements of the yarn, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to extend the space off the canvas. I'm interested in that dimension, that sort of physical presence of the object or the art object. So I posted the painting on Instagram with a time-lapse video of the final stages, and I asked people what they thought would be a good title for the work. And these are some of the titles that people shared. Love, I Like Pink, another one was Interaction, and another title was Love in the Time of Corona, Reborn, Rebirth, Social Distance Dissonance, or It Oozes Love in a Desperate Way. And I think all of them are excellent choices or reactions to the piece. And as an artist, the thing that you really love more than anything is that people do have a reaction to it. And I think that what I wanted to do with the work was to do some kind of piece that related to how broken our relationships are. And it's fitting that we are where we are.